Welcome back to another episode of the Humor Hustle, and today we have a very special guest for you guys. If you want to just quickly introduce yourself.
How are you guys doing? My name is Jackson Hartley. I am a professional videographer as well as a up-and-coming country artist, and I have lived multiple lives so far in my life. And
Yeah. And if there's one thing, so I've known Jackson for a long time. We go way back to high school. Talking like I'm 30, but I'm not. But the one thing I do know about Jackson is that he is the type of person that will ride or die for all of his friends. That's the one thing I've noticed about Jackson is like, if somebody's promoting something, he's like, yeah, I got you. If somebody's going somewhere, if somebody needs something, he's always the guy that's like, yeah, dude, I got you. And that's what I appreciate a lot about you. And, I'm glad that you're able to come here and share your story. And the first question I have for you is, so you recently, I guess you should talk about it first. So he had an accident pretty recently that changed his life, and if you want to take it up from there.
Yeah. So in 2021, September 21st, 2021, I was in a severe car accident. I was currently, at the time, I was working on the east side of Zion as a horse wrangler, and I was heading out to work after spending the weekend hunting west of Cedar City, Utah. So I was heading over the Cedar Pass along Highway 14, and I came around a corner, and the sun peaked just perfectly over the trees where it created a blinding glare on my Tacoma, and I lost track of the road. Tried to correct back, ended up overcorrecting, and rolled 3 times on the pavement, hit a giant pine tree, and then rolled 5 more times down a 200-foot embankment for a total of 8. And kicked my way out of my windshield, got up to the top to get help. There was a guy who had seen all the debris all over the road who stopped and was able to he called 911, and like the whole time, like, my thought process was like, I don't want another accident to happen. There's so much crap on the road. Like, so I start grabbing stuff. He's like, whoa, like, hey, like, no, like, you can hear it on the 911 call, because I got it from the sheriff's office, and you can hear the 911 call. He's like, hey, no, like, come sit over here. Like, what are you doing? But, like, I don't know, like, in that situation, I was completely aware of what had happened, of where I was, and I didn't forget any details. I was, like, hyper fixed on details. On the ambulance ride down, the paramedic was asking me, he's like, the nitpicky details, like, where's your childhood home? Like, who was, like, your childhood best friend? And I'm, like, going as, like, deep as possible on these questions. And he's like, I don't know, A, how you're walking, B, how you're remembering all this stuff, and C, how you're alive, because I really shouldn't be alive. And it ultimately has changed my life. I wasn't in a very good place mentally at the time. When the accident happened, I'd been going on, I think, year 7 of having severe depression, and had been battling it for a while. And so, like, when you had met me, Garrett, like, it may not have seemed like it, because I was really good at putting on a smile and, like,
Right.
and, like, faking being happy, but dude, I was absolutely miserable. And this accident ultimately, it got to the point where the PTSD episodes were so intense and so bad that I decided to go to therapy. I got help, and I kid you not, within a month and a half of going to therapy, I went from having 4 to 5 depressive episodes a week to I had 4 that year. Out of nowhere. And, like, I, like, look back at this accident and, like, think there's no way I would have ever gotten myself to go to therapy. I was too stubborn.
Right.
For I didn't think, like, oh, like, I'm a man, I should be able to tough this out, or like it'll get better eventually, like, whatever, like, just kind of head down. I can get stone cold sometimes like that and just grind out whatever, or push through it. But I had been struggling a lot that year, and although it was such a big traumatic event, it truly changed my life for the better. And so I don't look back at it as like a, man, like, this really sucks that this happened. No, I look back at it as like, hey God, thank you for giving me this second chance at life and getting to experience life happy.
Right. Yeah, and that's and we kind of talked about the depression thing a couple weeks ago, but you're the perfect example of that, because we were talking about how for men especially, you can't tell.
No.
You never can tell. And so that's the hardest part about it is trying to figure out what's going on with somebody's mind, but at the same time the person who is depressed,
Yeah.
like, at least from my shoes, because I knew you, I'm like, if I didn't know any better, I would think you were just like the happiest, most go-lucky person.
I mean, you could ask anyone that I grew up with, elementary, middle school, high school, any of them, they would all say, "Oh, Jackson's the happiest guy. He has the biggest smile." And then, like, when I mentioned, like, "Oh yeah," I'm like, that whole time I was suffering, they're like, we would have never known.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it too, is because, you know, people that do have these depression episodes and people that are going through it, like chronically going through it, and people that end up taking their lives because of it, a lot of people that are close to them are left wondering, like, what could I have done better? But in the same instance, it's like, I never knew. Like, how was I supposed to help? I didn't know that they were going through a tough time, or that they were having struggles with, like, just parts of their everyday life. And that's the hardest part about depression, and especially in terms of, like, being a man. It's like everyone feels as if they have to be more prideful than actually open up to people about how they're feeling. So, and it's like, I've never really been truthfully, like, depressed about something, but at the same time, if I was, I don't know if I'd tell anybody that I was. I would fake it.
100%. And, like, having been someone who did fake it, that's kind of why, like, when you introduced me, you were like, I dropped the ball for anyone, like, any one of my friends, is because I came across, there was a quote that started my trajectory towards, like, getting over it, but also it's a quote that I will live by till the day I die, and it's, be who you wish you had when you were younger. And although I had a lot of people I could turn to, I didn't really ever have anyone who, like, genuinely reached out to me or genuinely supported me in what I did, and was, like, sitting like, hey, like, dude, like, we're rooting for you. Like, I didn't feel like I had that, but I know I did. But at the time, because of the chemical imbalance in my brain, like, I felt alone and lost. And so I truly feel happiest when I'm helping other people. And so I was like, okay, my goal, if I may not have all these people who I feel like are supporting me, but it doesn't mean that I can't support other people. And so I give my all to everyone. I love every single person that I run into.
Yeah, and without even knowing, I'm sure you've changed a lot of other people's lives because of that. And I know there's a ton of people, just, you know, generally speaking, that they don't have anybody to talk to when they're upset or depressed about anything.
No.
And realistically, that just makes it worse when you don't have anybody to talk to. But it's just so hard, because I've known a few people that, like, I wasn't super close with, but people that have taken their own life that I had been around multiple times. And then from my standpoint, all I was left thinking was, what could I have done better? Like, why did I not do this? Or I should have reached out more. But I felt like all the blame was on myself, but I couldn't, which isn't right. And, you know, it's just hard, because you sit there asking yourself, what could I do? What could I have done? But there was no signs given. There's it's just so masked and so hidden. And I think especially with men, that's a really big issue, is, like, pride more than anything.
Sure. Pride in a man's life is their worst enemy. But like you're saying, like, I thankfully haven't had anyone close to me. I guess I've had one person, like, we're, like, family friends. I'd only, like, seen him a couple of times, but I would consider us close, who did end up taking his life. But he had CTE, and so it just was, he literally wasn't there, and so his brain is completely gone. But I've been on the phone for hours multiple times with multiple different people, where I've sat there and just have talked them out of suicide. I've called welfare checks using my parents' phones while I'm on the phone with with the friend just so that police can get to the location that they're at before they do anything stupid. And but that itself, like, I don't know, I kind of feel like you take all of that weight from them, and it whether you like it or not, it's like thrown on to you, because like you said, like, you feel like, what could I have done better? Like, how could I have noticed this sooner? And I didn't have anyone like that who I could call and like talk to about that. I had attempted twice, but God had something else planned for me.
Right.
So I'm just out of curiosity. There seems to be a reoccurring theme. So last week we had a guest on who had not necessarily a similar experience as you, but I'm noticing something. Usually it takes a defining moment in a person's life where essentially they, think they're going in the right direction. Something happens. Could be something traumatic. Could be something absolutely amazing. In this case, it was your car accident. Mm-hmm. And from what it sounds like, and very similar to our guest last week, this car accident kind of was a defining moment in the person that Jackson was becoming.
100%. 100%. And so we'll kind of take a few steps back from the car accident. Garrett and I met through high school film competitions.
Right.
We were competing against each other in New York City at the All-American High School Film Festival, and that's how we met. That's how our friendship began.
Right.
You, Tyler, Skip,
DJ, yeah, Christian,
and I've had those friendships since, oh gosh, that was my junior year. And
so this would have been, you graduated 19, right?
I graduated in 20.
Oh, 20. So you're a year behind me. So, yeah, that would have been 19.
6-ish years.
Yeah. Yeah,
Close
so
to
right
6
around
years.
6 years, yeah.
And that was that year. I kind of didn't know. Wasn't fitting into anything. Like, I loved photography. My mom's mom was a nature photographer, and she got me a camera for one of my birthdays, and I would go out with her and take these pictures. But she was unreal at taking pictures. She would submit them all to these photo competitions and all. And I was like, that's so cool. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so in middle school, we had the reflections program, and I was like, oh, like, what do I got to lose? So I submitted a picture and tried to tell a story behind it, and I got a participation trophy. I was like, hey, thanks. But
I can't tell you how many of those I have.
At that age, like in middle school, like, I was on cloud 9. I was like, hey, like, I got something. I wasn't doing anything else. I'd played football when I was younger and destroyed my shoulder, and I also am not the biggest guy. And it was like, yeah, I'm not playing anymore. Like, my body over that. I also wanted to hunt more in the fall, and I only got to go out like 2 days normally with football season. So I was like, yep, I'm done.
Yeah.
But and so I tried that. Then the next year I tried doing like a collage of 3 different pictures to tell a story, and I just couldn't tell a story that I wanted to. And so I think it was 9th grade, I decided to try and do like a little video, and the prompt was the world would be a better place if. And I don't know why I had this thought, but I think I was in Salt Lake with my dad for something, and I just had noticed like all the homeless with their signs saying like hey, like, any food will help. And so I had this little like handy cam, like old school, like $20 handy cam that I had recorded. We went and bought like $150 worth of Little Caesars pizzas, went to the homeless shelter, handed them all out, got a ticket because we didn't have a food handler's permit, which we did fight and won in court. But that was like my first like submission. I went through the first rounds, it got all the way up to state. If I would have won state, I would have gone to nationals, but it didn't end up winning state. But that kind of like started like a little fire. And then first year of high school, there was like the intro class, and so I took it, and I was like, oh, like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. But my high school had this weekly broadcast that I was like, oh, that's so cool. We would watch them every Friday. I was like, oh, I want to be a part of that. And so I joined it, and there was the opportunity to go compete in New York. And I had really no idea what I was doing. I didn't know any of the equipment. I was very beginnerish at editing. Absolutely terrible. My first video that I had air will never see the light of day. Like I have erased it off the face of the earth. Every hard drive, whatever, like it is gone. And
I've had a couple of those.
I was gonna say it sounds like our first video.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll look back at our first video and I'll like oh man.
there's a reason it's labeled what it is. So
but so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna do this, and because I didn't know much, they just kind of threw me in a random role, and I was like, all right, like cool, I'm just gonna like watch and like figure it out. Like, oh, it's cool, I gotta go to New York, I've never been, and I was put as an audio guy, and I was like, oh, cool, like whatever, this is cool. Like I'm running the boom mic and all that, and so we did our practices for our 3-day shoot, get to New York, shot. We had 3 days to like set up, shoot, and edit, and then we had to submit it in the competition.
Yeah, that was the 3-day claustrophobic creativity.
It wasn't claustro, but it was just the 3-day.
Oh, the 3-day. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so my group, we submitted. It was when we had Sam and Annabelle, and so like we had the.
Oh yeah.
And it was before they started dating, and so it was just like they were powerful, and I sat there, and so I was like watching Sam edit. I watched him edit for 12 hours. I literally sat there on that miserable hotel floor and watched him edit for 12 hours straight and was just mesmerized. We ended up taking 5th nationally, which was super cool. And we got back, and from October of my junior year to the end of my junior year, going into my senior year, I had made like 80 to 90 plus videos. I had 3 state titles, 2 second place titles, and I got the itch. I fell in love with it. Then coming that fall, I was asked, hey, like, will you come back to New York for my teacher? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. And then I was looking at the schedule, and at that point, I was already booking clients, and I was like, yeah, like I'm way ahead of everyone. Like I'm booking like out of state clients. I'm traveling everywhere. And I had a client down, it was a mountain goat hunt. I was supposed to be in Alaska filming a sheep hunt, and it fell through about a month before New York. And my teacher, without me knowing, had already paid for a spot for me on there just in case, and was going to like bite the bullet if I didn't go. And thankfully it fell through. So I paid him for my spot, but then he threw me at the very bottom, even though I was one of the only ones who had the experience and knew what the judges were looking for and all that. And so, but rightfully so, everyone had been practicing all summer, and they were all like, the other teams were dialed in. I was thrown in literally at the very bottom. He goes, okay, you're audio guy again. I was like, oh, all right, whatever. So we do our practices a month out, and we would do like these. So we do like a shoot a week, and we'd like submit it at the end of the week, and the teacher would review it and tell us like how we did. And we went through every single person on the team had a chance to be director, and I was the last one. I had 3 days to whip the team in shape right before we got to New York to compete as director and also audio guy. And so we get out there, and we're setting up. It was a broadcast journalism, so we're interviewing this NYU film grad and talking about her experience in the film industry. It was this awesome story, but as we're setting up, I'm trying to rig up the audio, and I'm like, hey, like, it's not working. Our audio broke on the flight there. I'm stressing out of my absolute mind because I'm the director, but also my team was just all over the place. We had one guy he was supposed to go and grab like some pictures, like we had printed off some pictures for like B-roll, and he's supposed to go grab them, and he went to the Walgreens to grab them, but on his way back, he dipped into flight school to go look at shoes, and I call him. I was like, hey, like, where are you at? Like, we need you. And he's like, oh, well, he's like, I'm about to grab the pictures. And then I tracked his location. I was like, no, you're not. And I chewed him in front of my teacher. My teacher sent a video to my mom of me absolutely grilling this kid, like just flaming him. Like, dude, like, you didn't come here for the right reason. Like I shouldn't give you any credit because you're not doing anything. You just literally came here to come to New York and go shop, whatever. He finally comes back. We're able to shoot, but like right before we shoot, I'm like, okay, like we don't have audio still. We had like we had the lav mics that were supposed to run through the soundboard, but the soundboard broke. So I just threw my phone down and like hoped for a prayer. That was the first video I ever spent 24 hours straight editing. Like, did not sleep at all. 24 hours straight. Locked myself in the room. My people who were in the room with me, I kicked them out because I was like, I can't focus. I somehow was able to sync all the audio up. It was crappy, and because I only had 24 hours to edit it, I didn't have wasn't able to put like a lot of time in through all the graphics that I wanted to do, which I did do later, but was able to get it all together, submit it in time, and then I literally went and slept for like 15 hours after, and somehow took a guaranteed last place team with no chance at all. Became director 4 days before we started filming in New York, and we ended up taking third, which was insane. And so like for me, that was one of like my biggest accomplishments, was taking something that was literally nothing and building it into a podium position nationally.
Right.
And so like that was like, to me, that was a very big mental challenge, and to overcome that was one of the most rewarding feelings ever. But senior year goes through, COVID hits. I had been doing a little bit of work film wise. I had a few clients here and there. I was shooting weddings. I'm not the biggest fan of weddings, but I was shooting them just because the money was decent at the time for high school. I was like, oh yeah, like this is great. Like I'm gonna making a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, like whatever. But I had a connection to the Utah political world and was able to start shooting for former Utah Speaker of the House, Greg Hughes, shooting his commercials. And by the time I graduated, I had 12 commercials air on TV. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, wow.
And,
That's crazy.
But then COVID hit, and I was like, oh, I'm going to travel. So I had a bunch of hunting clients that fall. Like, I was booked. I was traveling all over the U.S. I flew out to, where to go? I went to Pennsylvania, and then I was up in Montana and Arizona. I had a back-to-back hunt over Thanksgiving. So I went the week before Thanksgiving, spent Thanksgiving at a Flagstaff Sizzler, and had this Mexican family of like 13 asking me if I could take their picture right after I got off FaceTime with my family, and we had both my parents' sides at my house. And I was going through my depression at that time, and I was like, bro, like this is the biggest kick in the nuts ever.
Did you tell him no?
No, I took the picture.
I would have been like, well, I'm not going to say that. YouTube's going to report me. Deport him.
We can cut that out. I'm too nice of a guy is the problem. And so like I looked at him with a smile. I was like, oh, I would love to take your guys' picture. I'm sitting there fighting back tears. I'm like, yeah. And then because that first hunt, we didn't end up killing anything, and it was archery, and we put in like 150 miles on foot. Had so many close calls, just couldn't seal the deal, and it was super thick. The elk were overhunted, and it's like they were super skittish, and it was a miserable hunt not to get anything. And then that next hunt that I had that started the day after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday, we didn't see anything for like 4 or 5 days, and I broke. I completely broke down. I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I've never wanted to quit on a client middle of a shoot, but I am done. I literally mentally can't do it anymore. And she talked me into staying, and thankfully we did, because the client and I, so it was the guy that hired me, it was his little brother and dad who had tags, but he had been a guide, and so he was trying to guide him into areas, and we had glassed up an elk like the day before that was like 3 miles away, and we got over to it and we just couldn't find it. We lost it, and I somehow convinced him, after like arguing for like an hour on where to go that morning, convinced him to go to that spot, and we ended up getting his little brother a bull, which was awesome. It was the coolest thing ever. This 12-year-old kid shot a 650-yard shot and just dropped him in his tracks.
Cloud9 for him.
It was
dude,
the coolest experience to be behind the camera, and like I was sitting there just like in absolute awe. I was like, wow, like that. But like I got to watch like that family like bond over that moment. I was like, this is my reason for film. This is why I do it. And it was a good reminder after wanting to completely quit earlier in that week. But that season concludes. So this was fall of 2020. Spring of, I guess, that spring semester, I went to school down at formerly Dixie State, Utah Tech University now, in St. George, and I had hit a low with my depression. I would be hanging out with a group of friends, and I would dip. Like, we'd be having a ton of fun, and I would dip and go drive in the middle of nowhere and just cry for hours.
Was it just like social anxiety? Like, what was kind of the force behind it? Or what do you mean?
It was just these like crying spells that like I had no control over. I had like no reason why I would just sit there and cry, and it was so hard because like I had no reason to be sad or to be depressed. Like my life was so great.
Yeah.
Like I was living the life I wanted. I made friends because I went down there alone. I actually was homeless my first 3 weeks of college. I slept on this kid's couch, and he's now my best friend. And so shout out to Hunter, because I spent 3 weeks on his couch and using his shower, and I got to live with him last semester, which was sweet. But it was just miserable. I was so down, and I was like, fast forward to like May of that year, I picked up a job on the east side of Zion, working for a company called East Side Adventures, and I was a tour guide. I was taking people on UTV tours, I was taking people on horseback riding tours, canyoneering tours, all these like adventure stuff. And I'm gonna throw out a hot take. I think that the east side of Zion is way prettier than Zion National Park, and I think Zion National Park is overrated.
Clip it.
Clip it right there. I will take Bryce Canyon over Zion any day. But anyways, I started working there, and I'd done like a little video stuff. I wanted to be doing like their media stuff, but I didn't really have like any experience running social media, or like only thing I knew how to do was filming it. I could make somebody this badass commercial just by going and documenting and telling the story of an adventure, but I had no knowledge of anything else. And so I did like I think 1 or 2 videos for them. I'd gone out on a couple of the shoots and like had modeled for them, and kind of like would like watch like the photographer, and I actually became good friends with like their main photographer, and but I kind of like stopped filming. And in high school, like that was my dream. Like I loved it. The second that after that first competition, I was like, yo, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like this is my dream. And I like lost the desire because of how bad my depression was. Like I was so depressed that I lost sight of my dream.
So I'm curious with how low your depression got. Obviously, you got, a great musician mind. You've got an excellent film mind, right? Just based on your experience. To someone who's hit their low of lows, I mean, it happens in business, it happens in pretty much all aspects of life. But to someone who's hit the lowest of low, what are the steps as far as pulling yourself out? Or did you have someone else that kind of helped you pull yourself out?
The steps that I took to like pull myself out of like my lowest low was, I kept thinking back to, I was like, I'm about to get really deep. My second suicide attempt, I was looking down the barrel of a gun. I pulled the trigger and it didn't shoot. Pointed at the ground, it went off. I could have pulled again, but the only thing that popped in my mind was how heartbroken my mom would be. And at that point, I had hated who I was, because I had struggled with pornography addiction, because it was a rush of dopamine. And when I was depressed, like I needed something that would just give me a rush. And so I turned to that, and it had gotten pretty severe. And so I was like, I hated who I was. I was messing around with girls. I just wasn't a good person. I wasn't who my parents would be proud of. And I always had like the desire to do better and to try to fix my life. I had no idea where to start. And really, I just needed like an extra little push, like, hey, like get going. And I would say like for other people who are struggling, like honestly, the worst thing is, like, I'm trying to think how I can phrase this. What I would say to people who are at their lowest low is give it one more day. Just go to bed, give it one more day. Yes, tomorrow might be a little worse, it might be a lot worse, but give it one more day. I learned how precious life is from my accident, because the first 5 days after, I had to be woken up every 2 hours to make sure I was alive. My brain was so swollen from my concussion, because that's the only thing I had from it. I walked away with just a severe concussion. I should have been paralyzed.
Which is crazy.
Like, I'll give you guys the pictures so you can throw them on there. Like, I really should be dead. And if not, eating through a tube. I walked away, climbed up this insanely steep 200-foot embankment to go get help on my own. Was able to find my phone somewhere on the road. Called my dad and said, hey, I just rolled the truck. And I was like, the truck's done for. And he's like, are you okay? And I looked myself over. I go, I'm fine. And this I'll tell you a cool experience about this that really strengthened my relationship with God and gave me a true testament of there is life after death. Because I'm sitting there. Well, here, I'm going to go back. As I entered the canyon that I drove hundreds of times, and I'd done it multiple times without a seatbelt. I'd done it where I had no care because I'd done it so many times. It was like the back of my hand. Easy drive for me. I entered the canyon without my seatbelt on, and I heard a familiar voice say, Jackson, put your seatbelt on. I didn't think twice about it. I was like, all right, whatever. Threw it on. And right before my truck completely rolled, right before it lifted up, I felt the back end lift. And it's kind of like in the movies where it's slow, it goes to slow motion. You have two options to choose. And the same voice spoke to me and said, Jackson, let go of the steering wheel. Brace for impact, and you will be okay. And at that point, I really couldn't argue on that one. Yeah. I knew what was happening next. In that moment, I was like, "Okay, I'm going to die." And then I heard that voice, and I was like, "All right." So I let go. I just tucked my arms in, and it just braced. I started counting the crunches above my head, and so that wasn't fun. I would not recommend that ride at Disneyland. 0 out of 5 stars. But so I climbed up to the top, and this guy who pulled over and called 911, he had me go sit in his van with the heat on it. It was 29 degrees out. It was in the morning in September. It was cold, and I was at the top of a mountain. So I'm sitting in there, and there's all this debris all over the road. There's so much crap because I was coming back from hunting. Right. I had my totes in the back of my truck that exploded, and those were packed full. But he comes up with one thing. He opens the door, and I'm on the phone with my dad, and he goes, "Hey, I think you might want this." And he hands me the watch that my grandpa wore every single day before he died. And I instantly knew. It was that was my grandpa telling me those things. And I was he truly watched over me and protected me right then. And that also was something that helped pull me out of that depressive low, was feeling the love of my grandpa, because at that point it had been, I think, 3-ish years, and he was my best friend. We'd go fishing all the time. We went fishing in thunderstorms when we weren't supposed to. Grandma got mad at us. My mom got mad at us, but we're no, we're boys. We're going fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
And having him protect me like that was something that truly made me okay, you need to get your shit together, and you need to start putting an effort towards being better. I had gotten into the mindset working at Eastside Adventures that oh, I'm working, I'll get to it eventually. I'll get to it. But I was living also in the middle of nowhere. I was driving an hour and a half each Sunday for church. I lived in the middle of nowhere. My nearest Walmart was roughly 2 hours away.
Jeez.
That's not.
And so I was like, okay, like, whatever. I had to move home because I couldn't work. I couldn't ride horses anymore because of how severe the concussion was. Like, moving on the rocks would have jolted my brain. And I was pretty sensitive, like, sound and light for like a month or two. But the second I moved home, it was straight like, okay, this is a recovery phase. Like, you have a window. At the time when it happened, I was preparing to serve an LDS mission, and it put a halt on that. But I'd had my papers open for over a year at that point, and was like, yeah, I'll get to it eventually. Like, oh, I'll go once, like, when the season slows down and like they don't need me here at work anymore. And I don't think I was ever gonna quit. Like, I was gonna go to a point till they told me that I needed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of like the mental mindset I was in. It was just like work. And I couldn't work. And the accident did make my depression worse. It intensified it like crazy. Those episodes were scary. I would be like sitting on my floor, bawling, shaking for hours. And like, but then after, because of my concussion, my brain would be pounding. So then I'm hurting, and I'm crying more because I'm hurting. And it was the worst, never-ending effect. My brain felt like it was never going to get better. 6 months go by, I start cognitive therapy to retrain my brain. I had to relearn how to read.
Oh, wow.
I had to relearn how to like work like the working mindset, because I spent 6 months in a dark room trying to let my brain heal. And obviously that's not good for mental health at all. And the true turning point for me, like that's it, was I'd gotten into a relationship after the accident. It's like a month or so after. When I moved home, I started dating a girl up here, and I was driving from her apartment to a doctor's appointment, and it was the first snow of the year, and the roads were completely covered. Like, you couldn't see the road, and it triggered a very severe PTSD episode where my entire upper half fell limp over the middle console, and I could only control my legs. And so she grabbed the wheel, was able to steer us off the freeway and pull over, and she took over, drove me home that day. Like, once I got home, like, after I was able to like collect myself and like get my crowd together, I started scouring for therapists. I reached out to my neighbors who I'd known who had gone to some, and was able to get hooked up with one that like worked perfectly for me. But that was my turning point, really, was because that happened. And then later that day, I had probably one of my worst depressive episodes, and it was just the worst day ever. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And the suicidal thoughts after the accident were worse than they had been before. But I had more of a purpose at that point. I was like, God needs me here. Like, he has something planned for me that I need to do, and I cannot. Like, I can't go back. Like, I gotta keep pushing to get to that point. And so that was kind of like my mindset on that.
So I'm curious, have you found your purpose or your why? Through all of this, it sounds like you've definitely hit the lows, but I guess what's your purpose or why?
Yeah. And how has a near-death experience brought you closer to your goals and like awakened you to the idea of tomorrow's never promised? So once you reach the point of nearly having your life come to an end, how did that bring you closer to really what you want out of life?
So how a near-death experience got me closer to my goals was after that happened, and I realized how precious life was and how like life can literally change in seconds. Like, and I mean seconds. that whole experience probably was 10 seconds long. Like, that whole accident happened so fast that I seriously, like I said earlier, like, I realized how precious life is, because you really don't live, like, I realized how precious life was after the accident, those first 5 days after, because every time I closed my eyes, I didn't know if I was going to wake up. And since then, I've decided to live life like there is literally no tomorrow, because we could be called back home at any point.
Right.
Anything could happen, and you can't prepare for it. And so like I said, I've lived life like there is literally no tomorrow. Live life every day like it is your last.
Yeah, and a lot of people's lives are based off of preparation, but that's not something that you can get yourself.
Oh, trust me, I would love if I could prepare
right.
for that. Like, if I could mentally know, I would love that.
Yeah, but those are things that you can't, no matter how much you think you know about it, you can't prepare for a life-changing event.
No.
You can't calculate when it's going to happen. There could be no rhyme or reason for it, but you physically can't prepare for something like that. And that's why I think it's so important to take advantage of the moments that you do have, because at least for me, the reason that I never have allowed myself to, like, get really down on myself is because I don't want anyone around me to if somebody else thought I was a failure, that would hurt me more than thinking myself
100%.
that I failed myself.
That would really hurt you more? If someone else thought you were...
If someone... Let me put it this way. If my mother thought I was a failure, that would absolutely hurt me more than if I believed myself that I was a failure.
I 100% agree on that, because of my accident, I wasn't able to serve a proselyting mission. I actually had one of the coolest missions ever. So I was a service missionary for the LDS Church, and I physically was able to do everything, but they said that I couldn't go proselyting because of how severe my concussion was. And they're like, well, we could wait a year and do some evaluations and see if you're clear to go. And I knew for a fact that if I waited a year, I was not going to go. Because at that point, all of my friends would have been getting home from their missions. I'd already had some friends who were getting married, and I was like I feel like I'm going to be missing out, whatever. And so I was like, the option was do a service mission as soon as you feel ready. And so I did that. And I started off my mission continuing with film. And I did that for like a month, and honestly was not liking the transition from getting paid to do it to doing it for free. And
I don't think anybody would like that transition.
And I sat and like talked to myself and talked to God. And I was like, I want to do this as a career. Like, I still had like that dream was still like, it was like an ember. It wasn't like fully fulfilled yet, but it was an ember. I was like, okay, like, I still want to do this. I need that bump. I need that push again. And so I stopped that service opportunity and was able to be a pioneer for service missionaries. I had a buddy who was also a service missionary, and he had a family friend who runs this gospel-centered surf camp out in California where they teach young men how to ride the waves of life through the gospel, and they use the ocean as like a backdrop to distract them, but they teach them all these life skills. We have like a guy who is like a multi-millionaire who comes and talks about how to save money and all, and we would take these kids who are going through the exact same things that like I was going through in high school, like depressed, miserable and all that, and we changed their lives in 5 days. But so we went out, we had submitted it, went up the chain of command, got it approved for service missionaries. So we went out as the pioneers, which was terrifying, being like the first ones like in the world to do it, and be like, yo, if this continues, it's like riding on us. And it was one of my greatest experiences ever. I loved it, and being able, like I said earlier, like, helping other people makes me so happy. And that could be I think that's one of my purposes, is to help others, and which is also why like I was so like ecstatic to be on here, is because like I got stories. I can talk forever. I got stories to share that can help people. And so I was out at this camp. I had this one kid who, I mean, dude, I couldn't draw up a worse picture or worse situation for this kid, and I had no idea how to help him because I hadn't been in that situation. And I spent a lot of time like praying, trying to figure out what to do, and ultimately was able to like essentially talk the kid off a ledge, and he switched his life completely around after those 5 days. Is like went from being like failing classes to graduating with a 4.0. He's currently on a mission right now, absolute stud. And but later after that, I had the opportunity to go serve on an LDS cattle ranch out in Ely, Nevada, and because like I said, I was physically able to do anything. And you can't tell, but I'm in jeans and boots right now. I'm full cowboy. I grew up in the suburbs of Alpine, Utah. I don't know where this came from, but because it is not generational, but my brother and I are the cowboy to the max.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me, per se, but
He's a slut.
yes. No, I grew up on a farm too. We still have a farm currently in Hanksville, and the backyard of the house that I'm currently at has miniature Highland cows in it. So that's a fun fact. Sorry, that was a sidebar, but
No,
you wouldn't be able to sell.
No,
so don't
you
judge a book by its
you would
cover.
think that he'd be like the kid over there with a skateboard, just kind of. You think he's the punk, but
Yes,
secretly he's got a little cowboy in
correct.
him too.
Yeah,
So-
dude. So you don't judge a book by its cover, because I grew up on a farm too. I just don't dress like it, and then I show people the cows, and they're like, like the Spider-Man meme, like.
So I'm curious, because you don't know me that well.
No, I met you literally earlier.
Okay.
About an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. So, did I grow up on a farm? Yes or no?
No, you wouldn't. I'm guessing. Just because you're asking, I'm guessing you did.
No. Got him.
Yeah.
No?
Got him. No, I did. No, I did grow up in Lehigh back when there was absolutely
When there was more.
nothing
When there
out
was
there.
more horses than cars.
Yeah, when it was
Oh.
still agricultural.
But nah, dude.
Lehigh's a mess now, dude.
What do you call him? A city slicker? Is that what y'all call him?
Yeah. I would
Like-
say city kid.
I wouldn't call anybody a city slicker, because I'm not in a position or an outfit position to call anybody such things. But I feel like I know a lot more than people would know, and how
Like what?
how to take care of animals.
Mhm.
And I don't wear jeans and boots, because personally I look a little Brokeback Mountain-ish when I do that.
I don't think our viewers would complain, bro.
But
my
okay,
gosh.
all right.
We're getting a little wild
But
here.
yeah, no.
That's
So
funny.
I'm not in a position to call anybody a city slicker, but yeah, like I know how to do farm work, and that's a lot more than most people know how to do. So
He's good with his hands, is what he's trying to say.
okay. So what were you guys talking about?
Anyways,
That was
so-
off of me.
My dad has always said, like, he just from what when he's noticed of like my work ethic, like when I put my mind to something, like there is nothing in the world that can stop me. And with my depression, that was the only thing that could stop me. Is I would get behind in school or on clients' projects, and I just always struggle with that. But like the second that I put my mind to it, it's game over. Like I'm flying through, and being out on the ranch, like I didn't really have the ability to like stop, to be able to like deal with like the depression when it came and all that.
So does your depression still stop you or no?
I wouldn't say that it stops me. I now know how to like combat when an episode is coming on. I know when it's coming, and I know like what works best for me to like prevent it.
Mhm.
But because of like the accident where I wasn't able to work for like 6-7 months, I had lost like my work ethic. Like I wasn't working, wasn't able to work. I like medically could not work. Like I could not go apply anywhere. They wouldn't allow me. And so it was like the first like full job, I guess. And I'd been serving my mission for a little bit at that point, but I'm out there and it's every day. manual, like hard labor, and the hardest thing I think I've ever done was be out there on that ranch. And it happened to be not this winter that just happened, but the previous winter that was just horrible here in Utah, and was also horrible in Nevada. So I was there from preg checking to the end of calving, and so I'd done all the fixing the pens, getting everything ready for the winter, and that winter was a literal living hell. It was
cold.
So cold.
I remember looking at your Snapchats, and it'd be like negative 12, negative, anywhere from 0 to negative 15.
I would text you a picture of the temperature, and we had a week straight of negative 15, and
that's outrageous.
And I was on night shift for calving, and so it's negative 15, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and we're checking these cows that week we were checking every 30 minutes. The second one showed any sign, we're bringing them into the calving barn, trying to help them, trying to prevent them. And believe it or not, that week we did not lose a calf at night. I don't know how. We did during the day, but I wasn't out there the other missionaries, the other ranch hands were taking care of that. But when I was out there, I truly learned how to put your nose to the grindstone and just go to town and just work super hard. And I truly think that the character that I built while out there has truly defined who I am, and has defined how I'm able to achieve my goals and go after my goals. Because I got back from the mission, I was supposed to have a job lined up doing film and pictures and all that down in St. George, and it fell through. It just didn't work out, and I was very disappointed. And I was at a point where it's okay, I need to make money, I'm not working. And I had reached out to the company that I worked with to do those campaigns in high school, those political campaigns. I'd reached out to him. I was hey, because he had actually reached out to my dad while I had a month left. Reached out and he's hey, is Jackson still doing film? And if he is, is he available to come work for me? Because he was looking for someone. And I had a month left, and I was I'm not coming home. And I get back, job was not available. So I got back in April, and it wasn't until I think June 1st was my first day at the office. So from April 1st to June 1st, I was unemployed. I was sitting there crap, I need money. It's I have a little bit saved up, but not a lot, not enough to go do what I wanted to do, get more film equipment, etc. And so I get this call. It's hey, we have this availability. The guy that one of our guys is leaving for a study abroad, and he leaves in 3 days. You want to come in for an interview? I was done. And when I got into film, I never wanted to do Hollywood. I hate Hollywood just because I can't really have much involvement with the project. Whether if I'm running a camera, lights, audio, whatever, that's it.
Have you had experience with Hollywood before?
I had done short films and stuff in high school, and I know a few people who have worked in Hollywood and who just have had nightmares with it. But also I'm a hardcore conservative and could not deal with the liberal bullshit of Hollywood.
There you go.
Just say it how it is.
And so I
talk to him.
I was I don't want to move to California. I was planning on going back to school in St. George that fall, but I was I need a job for the summertime. So I go in, and I wanted to be in the commercial industry because I loved making and you experienced this, Garrett, in high school. We'd make just these little commercials basically promoting the different school events, and I loved it. I was I want to still do that. And so
I was one of the few people that when I was done with high school, I mean, for the first half it was kind of but when I truly started getting into a lot more filming, I'm proudly one of the only people I can say when I was done with high school, I was sad.
Oh, I was so sad.
Towards the end, and especially not only the film, but the connections and making friends and going to all these competitions and stuff, but for me, and
The access
especially
to the
for you too.
super expensive gear that we'll never be able to afford.
Yes.
Thanks, Alpine School District.
Yeah. Topham and Durant had a setup, bro.
Well, but dude, I'm one of the only people. I go back to Lone Peak, I think, once every 3 months. I will go and just drop into the class. I've gone back and I've taught. I've gone back and I've like mentored teams who are competing. I've gone back and like I've just like shared my story. I've gone back just to go hang out because like my film teacher Topham was literally like my mentor.
Oh,
Like, he taught me everything that I take it back. He didn't teach me anything. He really just pushed me to keep going. He was a sole believer on like if you really want to do it, you're gonna figure out a way to do it, and he provided the opportunities for you to figure it out. And I loved that. I was obsessed with it because I was like, and there were some things that he taught, like little micro things, but everything else, like I've learned on my own, and it like to me like learning a skill like that on your own builds so much character. And so I love it because I was able to like put in all the hard work to learn what I needed to learn and continue doing film. And so I was like, I want to stay in the commercial industry. I get this job at this marketing firm. I work for them throughout the summer, made some okay money. I was brought on part-time. I wasn't working a lot of hours. I was just like, oh yeah, like this is cool. Like great money, whatever. And they'd mentioned right before I left to go back to school, like, oh hey, like when you decide to move home, like we want you back. And I was like, oh, okay, sweet. And I go do a semester down in St. George, and because of all the stuff that I learned in high school, I was like, I wasn't learning anything. And I was getting tired of jumping hoops, not learning anything.
so just for context, real quick, was your major film?
Digital media.
Digital media. Okay.
Digital media. I was in my first semester. I took a film class, and had actually one of the dopest professors. So like NFL films.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started that.
Really?
Yeah. So my first college professor
huge.
was the guy that started NFL films.
No way.
One of the coolest guys ever. He's so old, and I was so sad that when I went back that he had retired because I totally just wanted to go talk his ear off. But I didn't learn anything in that class. He kind of looked at me. He's like, "Okay," like I'd pop into class. I would be there for some of the lectures, but he's like, really, like for you, like your grade's gonna be based on like the final project. And I was like, okay. And so he put me as an assistant director for like, because at the end of the class, like they had them do like this little short film that they played at the like local theater down there. It was cool. And he had me like oversee, basically wasn't like assistant director. It was more of like I was overseeing. I was like an advisor. I oversaw the entire production and gave tips here and there and critiqued a little here and there. And I got them a couple like drone shots and all that to use in their video. And I actually haven't even seen the final product, but whatever. But I go back down there and I was like, okay, like, I'm going to focus on classes, on stuff that I want to learn, that I feel like I'm going to learn something from. And I wasted my money.
I was the same way. And that's why college actually took me longer. So I went.
Did you graduate?
I still have one more, the internship. Is
okay, yeah.
Credit. Yeah, but I went to school for a full year with digital media.
Uh-huh.
And I was the same way. I literally was in a class watching a video of a guy saying, if you want to get better at film, don't go to school for it. And I was like,
that is the greatest quote ever on that, because
why the hell would you play that in a classroom of people who all have digital media as their major? And I walked out of the class while it was still going, and the semester had only like a couple weeks left, and I said, I'm changing my major. I left the classroom because I was like, what am I even doing here then? And I wasn't learning anything. Everything that they taught was everything that we already knew in high school. I literally showed up to these classes that were supposed to be advanced, and it was like, this is a camera. This is ISO. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
This is stuff I learned when I was 15
This
years
is bullshit.
Old. Yeah, this is bullshit. I'm leaving.
Well, and I made sure, like, the first day of class, I'd walk in and I would tell the teacher, hey, this is my experience. This is what I've done to accomplish? What exactly are you teaching, and am I going to benefit from this? And there were some things that I did learn, nothing editing wise, nothing like camera shooting wise, nothing that like would be nothing that would help me operate a camera or like edit a production, but it was more of like how to reach out to people. My broadcasting class that I had, he's a broadcast journalist. Awesome dude. I loved him. I would sit there and talk with him for like 2 hours after class. Like, we had a good connection. And when the final project came around, I straight up did exactly what we did in high school, where we rip off a Hallmark movie and use that as my basis to create a short film. And it was, dude, for me, I kid you not, like everybody else in the class is sitting there just stressing out over it. We shot in one day, and like it took us like 3 hours to shoot. Other people took like 4 or 5 days, and it's just because I had that previous experience, which was awesome. But I went into that my last semester at college, because I've since dropped out. But that last semester I went into fully knowing what I wanted to do career-wise.
Right.
Fully knowing that I was going to school to try to further my knowledge to continue working at this marketing firm. And it got me nowhere.
Yeah.
I didn't learn anything. I convinced my girlfriend at the time to move back here, because I was like, I'm not making money. There wasn't a job down there that was like worth my time. Like, I'd looked into some smaller companies and all that, but they wanted to bring me on full time, and it wasn't good pay. It wasn't comparative to what I was making up here, and that had a big wager on it. Because I was like, I could save money, move home, work full time, work at the job that I want and that I already practically have, and just pick up from where I left off. Yeah. And so that was kind of my motivation. Like, I made my decision halfway through the semester, like, I'm done here. I was like, this is not for me. School is not for me. I have the opportunity to work the job, my dream job.
Right.
Like, my literal dream job. I'm 21. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the risk. I'm just going to go for it. Yes, there could be some jobs in the future that may not accept me because I don't have a college degree, because I don't have a college education. But that is fine, because in the film industry, you do not need a college education. You need a good work ethic, and you need a lot of amazing content that you have already made, projects you worked on, all that. No joke, I walked back into the office, like, once I started working at the marketing firm again, as if I literally left for the weekend. Like, it wasn't a, like, oh, you need to fill this form out. No, it was no joke. Oh, hey, Jackson, good to see you again. And since then, since mid-January, I have been nonstop. I have shot 4 or 5 giant commercials. I shot a commercial 2 months ago that was like a $50,000 commercial, and literally tomorrow I'm setting up for a $80,000 commercial.
That's crazy.
I'm shooting that the next 3 days. I'm leaving that shoot for the marketing firm I work at. I'm leaving from that shoot and driving to Moab, and have a client out in Moab that I'm shooting for 2 days. And so I'm shooting practically every day this entire week, and that's a grind. But because I don't have a college education, so I am a little lower on like the level, like, employment wise. But
I would say fuck that. Here's why. Because, like, I'm gonna just say, I don't think anywhere needs a college degree nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, so here's,
and I chose to finish college, but I wasn't gaining it. The way you get better at film is by doing it.
Is by doing
busting
it,
your ass.
Not sitting in a classroom learning jack shit.
Yeah, and I changed my major for that fact. So I changed it to marketing, because I actually am going to be able to walk away.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing and gaining knowledge about, or on top of stuff that I already knew. And so I decided to go that route, but I realistically did it just to help me with stuff that I already knew, just to add more knowledge on top of it. But yeah, absolutely would never recommend or tell anybody to go to school for film ever, unless you're wanting to do like
Unless you want to be a director.
Yeah, a
Like
director.
in Hollywood.
That
That
about
is
it.
literally the only reason why I would say go to school.
For that matter, I'm gonna just disagree with the two of them and just say don't go to school. Period. I
Yeah.
feel like you can get experience pretty much anywhere else. It really doesn't matter where you.
The only reason why I say go to school is because you have a better chance of getting connected with Hollywood directors, because
Sure.
Hollywood likes to associate with colleges, and that would be your in, and that's the only reason why I would say it wouldn't be to go learn anything.
Yeah.
It'd be just to get that connection to get into
Sure.
the position.
And
you wanna be
the
in.
only setback I genuinely see from not going to college is there's some companies, I guess it depends on what field you're in, but there's some companies that it's non-negotiable.
Oh yeah, no.
If you don't have a degree, it doesn't matter if you've been 10 years in the field, no paper, no job.
Exactly.
And so you obviously have to find the right place, but that is crazy because I don't think you are smarter if you go to college.
Oh no. No.
There's 100 people
think you
you
get
could
dumber.
name that didn't get a college education that are like the smartest people I've ever seen in my life. But to certain companies that doesn't matter. It's the no paper, no job, and they won't even bat an eye at it. You could give them a full resume. Look how much I've done. Look how much revenue I've gotten this company. Look how much blah, 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 like whatever you want to say. But
Yeah.
a lot of those companies, no matter what experience you have or how long you've been in it, it's no paper, no job. And
I hope for the sanctity of humanity that we as a standard move away from that, because I feel like school, think about it. It's government affiliated. I mean, that's the way they make money.
Save your money, invest it into your own company, into your dream, your future, instead of going to college. Get an LLC, start grinding, put your head down, and just grind it out. Build your company up, reinvest at least half the money you earn back into the company, and you're going to be way more successful by, I'd say, 30, 35 than anyone else who is at that same age.
And then whatever money you have left, dump it into Bitcoin. I'm not a financial advisor.
Or online gambling.
Extensively.
Online gambling, too. The Plinko game, I heard, has big returns.
Okay, but what I was getting to, yes, I may be lower on there, and I've had to earn my way up in the company. I guess I had to check off basically milestones to get to a point. They're wanting to sign me on full time. They're wanting to put me on salary. I'm 21 years old. How many people do you know at 21 who get to be put on salary, get to start their 401k, have benefits, all that?
Me.
You too.
You work at us.
Outside of you two.
Outside us too.
Outside of you two.
That's
Not
about
talking
it.
about the band. Good band. But yeah, there's not a lot of people you could name.
No.
Not at all.
Not on two hands. You couldn't name 10 people.
So I had a shoot last week, and it was a smaller company, and it was just my boss and I. I guess so. He's the director of the media department. I'm assistant director, and so it's just him and I on the shoot. I'm a Swiss Army knife. That's what he tells people. My position in the company is literally the Swiss Army knife. I do everything. I get all the gear and all that. I set up all the audio, all the lights. I have that expertise from New York of the set productions, and so knowing how to set all that up and everything, which
on time as well.
on time, on a crunch time, which helps. But he had to go on a thing with he had to dip halfway through the shoot, and I was like, well, crap. This is the first shoot that I had opportunity-wise to do on my own. This was the first time I was actually able to run the camera on the shoot, which I've been fine with. All of our other shoots, I've been too intimidated by how big of a project it was to run it, and he obviously has more experience than I do. But he pulled me aside after, so I shot by myself for I think 3 days. It was roughly around 3 days. Ended up shooting 70% of the footage, and knocked it out of the park. Took down all of the equipment, which we had so much set up. I sent you the videos, dude. We had so much stuff set up. Took care of all that, but to me it wasn't crap, I have to do this. No, it was okay, you're grinding this out. Go, this is great. I'm living my dream. Those shoot days are miserable. This week is going to be a real test on how strong my mental health is right now, because I will be nonstop this week. And I have been I've been nonstop for the last 3 weeks. And I'm cruising, dude. It's awesome. But after the shoot, so he gets back from this trip with his wife, and he pulls me aside, and he's like, I want you to know, like, you're 10 years ahead of everyone your age. And I don't see that, like, in my editing. Like, I really don't. I see myself as equal to everyone else. But he's like, no, you are 10 years ahead. And so my brother also does music. He's an outstanding country artist. He's open for a lot of big names here in Utah, and he's getting there. He's crushing it. And I genuinely do think that he'll start doing stadium tours in the next 3 to 4 years.
Wow, good on him.
And they're wanting to lock me in full time. And I mentioned it to him, and he's like, look, realistically, like, you could dip for 6 months even, and I'd still want you back. I would still pick you over other people. And like you were saying earlier, like, being a failure is like it would hurt more. Hearing someone say, hey, I'm proud of you, like, verbally saying, not a text, but verbally saying, hey, I'm proud of you, like, you're killing it, is so big to me, because I wish I had that when I was in high school, when I was depressed as hell. Like, hearing, like, accomplishing the stuff I am and hearing that is so big to me, and it's what's keeping me going and keeping me pushing. But I went from, like, last year when I started working for them, I was like, they were testing it out. I was just doing like basic edits. I went from that to a year later getting put onto salary, having higher responsibilities. I finally like was invited to sit in on meetings and all that to help with pitches and everything else. And like, I'm seeing my work like play out. I'm like visually seeing my dream just completely unfold.
Yeah.
I was talking to my girlfriend's mom about it last night. I was like, I pinched myself in the morning, because I'm like, 3 years ago I was at the bottom of a mountain thinking that I should be dead. Don't know how I walked away. And right now I'm like crushing every dream that younger Jackson had. Like, if younger Jackson saw me right now, he would be losing his mind. Like, yeah. He would be like doing backflips down the hallway, like freaking out, like a girl in like 2016 meeting Justin Bieber, freaking out, like wild, freaking out. Because, dude, I've come so far.
Absolutely.
And I tell people, like, I have literally grinded for the last 8 years to get to where I am film wise.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to like give your all into everything, because and especially hearing the compliments from your work, and not just mediocre compliments, like the good enough is not good enough, but to quote, like, have you ever seen Whiplash?
Yeah.
So to quote that movie, like, the 2 most harmful words in the English language you could ever hear is good job.
100%.
Because that instantly tells you that good job is not good enough.
No, good job is not good enough. I mean, my boss, I walked into the office yesterday because I had to crank out a commercial that is airing on TV, like, I think probably right now. So I had to finish it. I finished it up this morning, but I get into my desk and I have 2 Costa Vida gift cards, and it says, hey, thanks for all of the hard work you've put in recently. Like, just want to let you know, like, we appreciate it.
That goes a lot farther than good job.
That goes a lot farther than good job.
Don't say good job.
Well,
I'm proud of you, and like, hey, I appreciate everything you're doing right now. It's huge.
Like, my wife might hate me for this, but like, good job after you do the deed.
Oh,
how's that make you feel? Oh, just imagine that.
Good
like,
job.
You're sitting there, and
that
the
would
next
make
thing,
you feel so horrible.
And the next thing you hear is
good job,
and you're sitting in the corner panting.
That would be the worst.
You're sitting there. You just had the best workout of your life. You just won the Super Bowl. Hey,
you gave her everything.
Good job would be the most harmful.
And you look over here like, ma'am.
Exactly.
I just gave my heart and soul into that. And you basically went,
pretty
good job, champ.
Yep.
But
hey, there's your participation trophy.
And for the record, my wife does not tell me that. She tells me
good job.
No, she doesn't.
Des, if you're watching this, next time you do your biz, just pat my boy on the back.
She doesn't say good job. She says it's perfect. Not that
She's
that's much
lying.
better, but
Oh.
it's,
No.
it's-
Say
it
good
is what
job
it is.
next time. But anyways, kind of switching courses a little bit. So I understand that you have a song coming out soon.
Yes.
And just real quick to wrap this episode up, just give me like a 2-minute debrief on your country music journey, the song you created, and then we're actually going to get a live performance of the song. So
Yeah. So when I was younger, I would play guitar all the time. So like in middle school, I was playing like every talent show I could. I played Alpine Days when I was 14 years old, and was playing Tim McGraw's Just to See You Smile. Forgot the second verse, panicked, and walked off stage.
I don't know how you. Okay,
Okay.
first of all, I'm not trying to flame you, but I don't know how you forget any word of that song.
I don't
That's a
either.
classic song, man.
It was pure stage fright. I think it was because I played it perfectly the next day in my closet where no one was watching, but I did it in front of like 2,000 people, and I forgot it and walked off stage. Did not touch a stage again for 7 years. Took a 7-year hiatus
That's a long
on
break.
music up until last year because my brother had been touring and I'd been seeing him playing, and I had gone to hang out with him and a few of our friends because my brother and I, we love swing dancing, and so we had like this swing dancing group, and we were over at one of their houses, and I was like, hey, pass me the guitar, and I played a song that I wrote, and one of the guys like, holy hell, like your brother does this too, and he actually gave me an opportunity to open for him last year, and I've been opening for him a bunch, and he asked me, he's like, hey, like, I'm going out to Nashville, and he's recording with my brother's producer as well, and so we're like, yeah, like, he's like, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, 100%. So last month I recorded 4 songs, and my debut single comes out May 24th. It is called Hit and Run. They're going to have the pre-save link in the bio, and then after it drops, they will throw the link tree to where you can play it and all that. But I've had this dream of music since I was like 6-7 years old. I've been playing guitar since I was 8 years old. But I remember telling like my babysitter when I was like 6, like one day I'm gonna be a rock star, and then did nothing about it. Now I am, and so I've been playing live a lot recently. I'm up and coming. I don't have a lot of experience, and all my songs are where like there's a lot of meaning behind all of them. They're all deep, which really sucks, but it's awesome because I love it, and I'm a storyteller at heart through film. I've chased one dream with my film job, and now I'm chasing the next one. And as soon as I get this one, we're on to the next. Do I know what the next one is? No. But, dude, once you get into the groove of hustling hard, nothing can stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
So we're about to see a live performance to wrap up this episode. If you want to go ahead and grab your guitar, scoot that chair back a little, give you a little more room. And, pre-save the song May 24th, you said?
May 24th on all streaming platforms. And then you guys can follow me at LonePeak20 on Instagram and on TikTok.
Yeah.
Help me continue this journey and share the love.
Yeah,
So,
we'll put all his links in the bio. So, man, without further ado, this is a live performance of his original song, Hit and Run. And this is how we'll wrap up the episode. Enjoy.
I've been looking all around this town for you. You're nowhere to be found. You left me in the dust. Without a warning, change my ways, do anything not to run into you. You hit and run, 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 you hit and run.
There you go. Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, May 24th, all streaming platforms. My name is Jackson Hartley. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at LonePeak20.
And
Appreciate
real
you guys.
quick, we always like to do this before we leave. If you could give one really quick piece of advice or tip to change somebody's life or make them just overall happier, what would you say? And then we'll sign off after that.
We'll go with the quote that changed my life. Be who you wish you had when you were younger. Put the work in and just don't stop. Do not let anything come in your way, because seriously, like, looking back at how shitty my situation was with my depression, like, I had no reason to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, life's great no matter what situation you are. You could be rich, you could be poor, you could be in a struggling situation. Appreciate all the little things.
Never switch on the homies in the day ones. They didn't wanna open doors, so we made some. Take a bow on these haters like I'm Trey Young. That direct deposit hitting like a bass drum. Incoming, coming.